So once again, very good evening, everyone, and welcome back to the session. So, we are almost in the final stage. We have got some more additional areas to be covered as part of our 25 marks question. So we will be looking into each of those areas in detail today. And we have already covered other areas in the last 4 days session. So let's start with the areas of advertising and criteria relating to the audit phase first. So we'll just do one thing. We will initially revise the theoretical areas, and after that, we will move on to the area of question practice. Okay. I believe you guys remember the area of advertising and publicity related rules. So we have already studied that. Is it allowed for the ACCA members to advertise their service?
Yes.
Yes. ACCA have allowed all its members to advertise whatever service they provide. However, there's a general rule that whenever we advertise, it should not adversely affect the other ACCA members, ACCA or accounting profession as a whole. And we have also properly studied that always and always the aim of advertisement should be purely for the purpose of informing others about the service that we offer, and it should not be for the purpose of impressing others. Then again, we have studied that whenever we refer to the term ACCA, the term ACCA can be used along with your name. Then it can be used along with the name of the ACCA members, or an ACCA member can call themselves as a chartered certified accountant or a certified accountant, or if they're a fellow member, they can call themselves as FCCA. But it is not allowed for an organization or an entity to use the term ACCA along with their name. And especially for a company, they are not at all allowed to use the term ACCA along with the company name, or even in the company's website name also, ACCA term is not allowed. Then if you are an audit firm, then you may use the term firm of chartered certified accountants, firm of certified accountants, or ACCA practice with the criteria. What was the criteria for using ACCA practice along with the firm name?
At least half of the members should be ACCA.
Exactly. As at least half of the members in the partnership firm should be ACCA members. In addition to which, these members should be having more than 51% of voting right of the partnership. In that case, they can use the term ACCA or ACCA practice along with the firm name. Again, if it's a firm whereby all members are ACCA members, they can use the term members of Association of Chartered Certified Accountants in their professional stationery. And in case if it's a mixed firm, which means when it contains both the certified accountants and chartered accountants, in that case, they should not use the term certified accountants and chartered accountants. Instead, they have to use the name of these professional bodies. Like we have to use the partners of this firm are members of either ACCA or ICAEW. And in addition to which, we have also studied about the regulation for using ACCA logo. And we have studied that at least one member should be ACCA member. And in order to use the logo, at least one member should be considered as ACCA member. And ACCA logo should be separate from that of the logo of the firm. Then the position, size, and color and everything of the logo should be clearly recognizable as ACCA's. Then the logo can be downloaded directly from the ACCA's website. Again, when it comes to the name of the practicing firm, it should be in accordance with the dignity of the profession. It should not be a misleading name, and the practice name should not confuse with any other company's practice name. And finally, in case if it's a sole practitioner who runs a practice his own, then he should never use the term and partners along with the firm name. Not with the firm name, with the whatever be the proprietorship's name along with that name. Then with regarding the fees, we have studied that members are allowed to charge any fees which they feel appropriate. However, whenever they charge the fees, there was a criteria. What was the main criteria for charging the audit fee? It should always be an amount which is reasonably be enough to cover the expenses incurred for the purpose of audit. And there are additional factors to be considered. That first thing is the fact that the fees should be charged on the basis of what the auditor feels as actually appropriate. The auditor can also charge the fees which he have already agreed with the client, or in other cases, if it is already a fees is normally being charged for on custom basis for a specialized industry, then that fees can be charged. And if the auditor is determining the fees on the basis of the cost incurred for the audit, what are factors you have to consider? You have to consider about the seniority of the person who are engaged in that particular work. Then time spent by each person in the engagement should be considered. the amount of degree of risk and responsibility need to be considered, because if the risk and responsibility is high, automatically the audit fees can also be charged high. Then the urgency of work to the client need to be considered. Then importance of work to the client should be considered. And in case of overhead expenses for the firm, all the overhead expenses should also be considered there. But we have clearly studied that whenever we charge a fee, it should not be on the basis of percentage, contingency, or any other similar basis. And at the same time, lowballing or any other kind of referral fees are also not allowed. But in case if a firm wants, they can charge the fee on the basis of hours spent by each person in the audit team. So if it is based on that, then it's fine. And again, we are repeating the same thing, that in case if auditor want to charge a fee which is quite low, it is allowed. But the auditor should ensure that he is complying with all the professional standards, and the audit work should be done by experts, and adequate amount of experience also have to be used while performing the audit engagement. And the quality of the audit should not be reduced. That's a key word. The quality should not be reduced. If the auditor can work an engagement without reducing the quality, even at a low audit fee, then it is advised that there's no issues by taking that engagement. Clear, everyone?
Yes, sir.
Okay, fine. So we will just do one thing. We will look at a sample question now. Well, we have already done a question called Sanzio, which is the one and only question in the revision kit in relation to the advertisement. So when it comes to a question like Sanzio, the examiner might be asking you to comment on the suitability of the advertisement, discussing ethical and professional issues raised. So in this sort of question, you need to consider both the advertisement is suitable or not. At the same time, whatever be the ethical or professional issues that are involved there, that should also be considered. So we'll just look at the scenario 1. Over this scenario, they have provided us a background information with regarding the client company, in addition to which they have given us a draft advertisement, and they are asking us to criticize the advertisement. So everyone, please do one thing. For the time being, just read the introductory paragraph and the advertisements till here. Okay, till save your money. It's a one and only question available there in the revision kit. So please just go through this. So we'll just go through the introduction paragraph together. So it's July 2015. You are the manager in R&Co, a firm of chartered certified accountants, which offers a range of assurance services. R&Co has 12 offices and 30 partners, 10 of whom are ACCA members. So they have told us that we are responsible for the audit of our company. And out of 12 offices, they have 30 partners in total, where 10 members of them are ACCA members. Other 20 members are not relating to the ACCA. And on the basis of which they have given us the advertisement for that particular entity. So now everyone go through this advertisement part. And please try to pick if something is not matching with the criteria that we already learned with regarding advertisement. Okay. So have you had enough of your accountant charging you too much for the poor quality services? Does your business needs a kickstart? Look no further. R&Co provides the most comprehensive range of finance and accounting service in the country, as well as having leading tax team in the country who are just waiting to save you money. So when you get a scenario like this, on the basis of advertisement, you need to consider whether there is any ethical issues involved. In addition to which, you must also consider whether the advert is stating something that is misleading. Again, you need to consider whether the advertisement is complying with the regulations which you learned regarding ACCA rulebook. So is there anything which went wrong here? And when you get the questions like this, go on word to word, check whether anything specified over there regarding the advertisement is inappropriate. Is there anything specified here, guys?
Accountant charging you too much for poor quality services.
Yes, they have stated whether there are some accountants charging you too much for the poor quality services being offered by them. So what kind of issue is this?
They're discrediting
Discrediting the
They are
the
trying to
accountant.
discredit other professionals in the same market. Is it allowed as per the ACCA principle?
No.
No.
No. Well, we have already studied that as per ACCA rule book. Whenever an advert provides their advertisement, it should not be in such a manner that they discredit other professionals or any other person in the same industry or in any other manner. So here they are literally focusing on other accountants and they're claiming that other accountants are charging too much. In addition to which, they are also stating that other accountants are providing poor quality services. So you can mention that it is not allowed as per the ACCA rule book. So the advert should consider removing the statement from the advertisement. Okay. Then, is there anything specified over there in the same paragraph which is misleading?
Does your business need a kickstart?
Okay. So what's wrong in that?
It's more like it's not providing information. It's like trying to impress.
Exactly. So you can mix it with the first paragraph itself. Okay. So you can mention that in addition to which, as per ACCA rule book, it's clearly mentioned that whenever an advertisement is provided, it should be aimed at providing information to the others about the services that we offer rather than impressing the others. However, here the advertisement is purely based on impressing others about the services they offer. So this sort of statement should be removed from the advertisement. Then what else? Yeah, they have mentioned that they are providing the most comprehensive range of service and they have got leading tax team. So, well, there is now a measure for the time being to measure about whether they are providing the high quality service or whether they are maintaining the leading tax team in the country, because they have only got 12 offices in the whole country. So with that, they might not be able to claim that they are the leading tax team. And if they are not having any validity on their claim, then it should not be provided in the advertisement as it will be misleading. So that statement have to be removed from the advertisement. Clear?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Then what else?
Waiting to save your money.
Okay. What's wrong there with regarding waiting to save your money?
Accountant's job is not to save the money. It's
What do they need to do in the chain?
അവര് കറക്റ്റ് ആയിട്ട് ഓഡിറ്റ് പെർഫോം ചെയ്യണം, അല്ലെങ്കിൽ അക്കൗണ്ടിങ് അല്ല ഇത് ടാക്സിന്റെ അല്ലേ. അപ്പം ഇത് ടാക്സ് ഇതൊരു ഇല്ലീഗൽ ആയിട്ട് ചെയ്യുന്ന കാര്യമല്ലേ?
Exactly, that is what you need to state there. So they are claiming that they will be able to save you money, that to tax related money. Well, we know that the tax computation will be purely on the basis of the tax regulation that is being provided by the country. However, since this accountant is claiming that they will be able to save the money, there can be chances that it might lead to tax evasion, right? So, which is not allowed as per law. Therefore, the auditors should remove the statement and they should never state that the auditor will guarantee on saving your money relating to the tax expenses. Clear? Okay. And you can consider other points as well. And something is wrong here as well. So what's wrong here?
Chartered certified accountants.
Yeah, they have used the term chartered certified accountants along with their name. So are they actually allowed to use that particular name, chartered certified accountants, along with this R and Co?
No.
No, because they have got only 10 members out of 30 partners.
30 members.
They are not allowed to use that because we have literally studied that it is mandatory rule of ACCA that there should be at least 50% of members as partners as ACCA members, and they should be having more than 51% of the voting right. They will be able to state the term chartered certified accountants along with the firm's name. So this should also be removed from the advertisement. Clear, everyone? Okay. So this is how you will be getting questions on advertisement. Still, there are multiple points in relation to the ethical issues as well. We have done the whole question from a regular class itself. So if anyone have not yet gone through this question, please do practice this question, because there is no other question in relation to advertisement in the latest as well as in the old revision kit. I mean, in the Kaplan revision kit. So please go through this question. Okay. You can search for the same question. It's there in the old revision kit as well. So it's question number 43 in the latest revision kit, question called Zanzio. Okay. Then again, coming back. So, well, we have also studied about tendering. Well, what do you mean by tendering, everyone? What do you mean by tendering?
Audit proposal.
Yeah, it is nothing but submitting a proposal to the client, right? So we will be literally submitting a proposal to the client company to attract the client in getting a audit engagement. So one of the main element in the tender will be the audit fees that is being planning to be charged by the audit firm. And well, we need to include multiple contents also within the tender document. So what are the things that we need to include within a tender? We need to include the fee, how it is being calculated. We need to include the outline of the firm, then legal requirements of the client, assumptions, proposed approach, quality control procedures, as well as if we are planning to provide any other service, that should also be clearly mentioned there. But we have already created a particular benchmark for considering this question, whereby we have created the format for tender, and you can use this format for every question. But always keep in mind that whenever you include this particular content, ensure that you are clearly writing it specifically on the basis of scenario. You should never give general points for audit proposal. Instead, you should be providing scenario specific points. So first of all, you will be getting questions on what factors have to be, or what are the things that have been included within a firm's tender document or within an audit proposal. So in that case, what's the first thing that you need to include there? It's all about the outline of the audit firm. So you need to give an outline of the audit firm. So literally you need to pick this outline of audit firm from the scenario and you need to write it accordingly. So outline of firm has to be provided first. Then you have to identify the requirements of the client. So whatever it's being specified in the scenario have to be properly read. And after that, you need to include the requirements of the client within the tender document. That too, if it's a first year audit client, which means sometimes there can be chances that the client might not have been part of audit at all. So it might be their first year engagement, first year audit itself. So in that case, we have to literally mention about the responsibilities of the management as well as responsibilities of the auditor in relation to the audit requirements. Again, you should clearly specify about the audit approach. So the way in which you are planning to do the audit engagement. Maybe you might be following control approach, or you might be following full substantive approach. Again, if it is a first year audit client, if it's a first time ever they are planning to conduct their audit, in that case, they might not be familiar with the way in which we will be testing opening balances. So we have to specify about how we will be considering the opening balances and the comparatives. And if the client has specifically mentioned anything in the scenario, maybe they might have mentioned that the audit engagement should not be descriptive. So if something is mentioned in relation to the specific audit approach, that should also be included here. Then again, how we will be making communication between the management and with those charged with governance, and in which time and in what manner the communication will go on, and when we will be providing the final report, and what will be the content of the final report, all have to be mentioned here. Again, deadlines have to be mentioned. It may be mentioned purely in the scenario that the client is requesting the auditor to perform engagement within 1 month. And if the auditor will be able to complete that particular engagement within 1 month, that have to be mentioned there. And if the auditor will not be able to perform the engagement within the same period, then the auditor will need to specify about the actual required time for the auditor to complete that particular engagement. Then in terms of key staff and resources, so if the auditor is specifically having any kind of resources or key staff for the purpose of performing the engagement, maybe the client may be a particular industry specific client. In that case, if there is somebody in the audit team with industry specific knowledge, then that have to be specified there. Then with regarding the fee, then the auditor need to mention about how the fees will be calculated and what are the factors that will be considered while calculating the fee. The terms of payment of fees and everything will be mentioned there. Then if the auditor is having any kind of quality control measures, or how the entity will be able to comply with the ethical related requirements and all, that have to be specified. And finally, if the auditor is able to provide any additional non-auditor assurance service, that should also be specified here. So again, I have just explained it in general terms, but when it comes to the question practice, you should literally match the scenario with that of the each elements in this audit proposal. Okay, so we will just do one thing. We will start with the question, so I will get a better picture on how these things have to be included within an audit proposal. Okay, just a moment. So we have already done a question called Western. We will quickly go through the same question again. So in this question, they have asked us, first of all, they have asked us with regarding the audit proposal. Explain the specific matters to be included in audit proposal other than those relating to audit fees. So they have asked us about the specific matters to be included within the proposal. And as you can see over here, explain the matters to be included. No, it is specific matters to be included. So with regarding specifically to the client, what are the factors you have to include in relation to the audit proposal? That is what is asked. So let's do one thing. Let's quickly go through the scenario and pick all the matters that you need to include within the audit proposal. So everyone, please go through this scenario first. All done? Alam. Okay.
Yes.
So it is 1st July 2015. You are the audit manager in Western & Co., which is an international firm of chartered certified accountants with the branches in many countries and which offers a range of audit and assurance related service to the client. Your responsibilities include reviewing ethical matters which arise with audit clients and dealing with approaches from prospective audit clients. The following exhibit available below provide information relevant to the question with regarding Jones and Ordway Company. So do we need to take any information directly from the introductory paragraph? Do we need to consider taking any information from the introduction?
Outline of audit.
Yes, we have got the outline of the audit firm, right? So first of all, we need to include about the outline of the audit firm. So you can mention that first thing have to be included within the proposal should be outline of Western company. Okay. Then what do you need to mention here? You can mention that this should include a short history about the Western Co. They need to mention that they are part of international firm of chartered certified accountants with many branches in many countries, and they offers wide range of audit and assurance related services to the client. Then, whenever you provide an information within the audit proposal, you should also specify about why you are including that particular data. Why are you including that data here?
Client have
Yes, because the client, further in the scenario, it's mentioned that the client have grown exceptionally, and therefore the client is planning to extend their business to overseas countries as well. So you can mention that. So if the client company is planning to expand to the other countries where Western company is also having offices, then Western can get audit for the particular country's work as well. So that is why it have to be included within the outline of the firm. Clear? Yes. Then the manager of Jones Company has invited Western & Co to submit an audit proposal for the consideration. Jones Company was established only 2 years ago, but grown rapidly. This will be the first year that audit is required. In the previous year, limited assurance review was performed on financial statements by an unrelated audit firm. Company specializes in the recruitment of medical personnel, and some of the startup funding was raised from a venture capital company. There are plans for the company to open branches overseas to help recruit personnel from foreign countries. Jones Company has full-time accountant who uses off-the-shelf accounting package to record transaction and to prepare the financial information. Company has a financial year end 30th September 2015. The following comment was made by Bentley Jones, company's founder and owner manager, in relation to the audit proposal and the potential audit fees. Be quite low, as I'm willing to pay more for the service that I consider more beneficial to the business, such as strategic advice. I would like the audit fees to be linked to the Jones Company's success in expanding overseas as a result of the audit firm's advice. Hopefully, the audit will not be too descriptive. I would like it to be completed within 4 months of the year end. Okay, this is what it's mentioned in the scenario. So we can just do one thing. We can keep this as the benchmark, and we will match this benchmark to the question. So first was to include about the outline of the audit firm. Then if there is something mentioned in the scenario that have to be specified within the audit requirements of the client company. Is there anything
First year of audit.
Yeah. It's the first year ever the client is going to have their audit, right? So since the client is going to have audit for the first year, what we need to do? We have to clearly specify about the regulatory frameworks, as well as we need to mention about duties of the auditor and management in relation to the audit requirement. So that should be clearly specified. Then again, is there something that is relating to the proposed audit approach?
Not too disruptive.
Yeah. The client company have told us that the audit should not be descriptive. So what else is there to be included here? Exactly. Since it's a new client, we need to consider mentioning that how we are going to test the opening balances as well as the comparative information, right? So what have to be included in the audit approach? We need to specify them about how the audit will be progressing from the very planning stage. Then we need to mention that the audit will be performing in accordance with the international standards on auditing. And since it's the first year for which the audit is required, we need to mention about how the audit firm will be testing the opening balances as well as the comparative information. And we need to mention about how the audit will be performed without being descriptive. Okay. Then with regarding the communication part, will there be much information that we need to take it from the scenario? Not really, because it's a general paragraph. Then with regarding the deadline, if there anything that have to match with the scenario, deadline.
Complete within 4 months.
The client have requested us to complete the audit engagement within 4 months of the year end. So is that a reasonable period to complete within 4 months?
Yes.
Yes, it's a reasonable period. So you can include within the deadline that the client company have requested the auditor to complete the audit within a span of 4 months. Therefore, since it's a reasonable period, auditor should consider specifying there that the auditor will be able to perform the audit engagement within the stipulated time. And the auditor will also include how the auditor will progress to provide auditor's report within the specified time period. Okay. Then Next one, with regarding the key staff and resources. Do we need to include anything relating to key staff and resources here?
Accountant is using off-the-shelf.
Yeah, so accountant are using off-the-shelf accounting package to perform the accounting computations. So we can mention about any specific computer-assisted auditing technique that the client audit firm uses in order to counter the off-the-shelf accounting package being used by the entity. In addition to which, if there is any specific additional knowledge required with regarding the industry in which the company operates, then the audit can also include about the resource ability of the audit firm to perform the audit relating to the specific industry. Okay. Then again, with regarding fees, it is not required to mention because they have already told us that we are not required to mention anything relating to that. With regarding quality control and ethics, we can use general points. Then in relation to the additional non-audit and assurance service, do we need to mention anything? Is it a potential client which looks for additional audit or assurance related service?
Yes, they are expanding.
Yes, they have clearly mentioned that they are expanding into the overseas market. In addition to which, they are also willing to pay fees for the value adding services. So if the auditor is able to provide any of the value adding services without affecting ethical issues, then the auditor must consider specifying that within the additional non-audit and assurance services. So this is what we need to mention with regarding the audit proposal or tender document. Is that clear, everyone?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So you should always match the format to that of the scenario. General points should not be provided as a direct theoretical area. You should always be matching it to the scenario because they have clearly asked us about to mention specific matters that need to be considered in relation to the audit proposal. Okay.
ഈ ഫോർമാറ്റ് ആണ് ഫോളോ ചെയ്യേണ്ടത്.
ഈ ഫോർമാറ്റ് ആണോ ഫോളോ ചെയ്യേണ്ടതെന്ന് ചോദിച്ചിട്ടുണ്ടെങ്കിൽ ഈ ഫോർമാറ്റ് ഒരു ബെഞ്ച് മാർക്ക് പോലെ ഞാൻ തന്നേക്കുന്നേ ഉള്ളൂ കേട്ടോ. പാസ് ക്വസ്റ്റ്യൻ പേപ്പേഴ്സിന്റെ ബേസിൽ എടുത്തേക്കുന്നത്. നിങ്ങൾ എപ്പോഴും ഈ ഫോർമാറ്റ് എന്തിലേക്ക് മാച്ച് ചെയ്ത് നോക്കണം, സിനാരിയോയിലേക്ക് മാച്ച് ചെയ്തിട്ട് എഴുതാൻ നോക്കണം.
ഈ ഓർഡർ തന്നെ ഫോളോ ചെയ്യണം.
ഇതാണ് നോർമൽ ഫോർമാറ്റ് എന്ന് പറയാം.
മറ്റേ പോയിന്റ്സ് ജനറൽ ആയിട്ട് കുറച്ച് പോയിന്റ്സ് നേരത്തെ പറഞ്ഞില്ലേ,
അത് നമ്മൾ ടെൻഡറിനകത്ത് ഇൻക്ലൂഡ് ചെയ്യേണ്ട കോണ്ടന്റ് എന്നുള്ളത്. ഇതാണ് ഫോർമാറ്റ്. ഓക്കെ. എപ്പോഴും നമ്മളൊരു പ്രൊപ്പോസൽ കൊടുക്കുമ്പോൾ ആദ്യമേ വേണ്ടേ ഓഡിറ്റ് ഫോമിനെ കുറിച്ച് പറയാൻ? മനസ്സിലായോ? Okay. Then we have got one more question here. They have asked us to assume that Western company is being appointed to provide audit services to Jones company, and we need to discuss on the issues that need to be considered by the audit firm in determining fee that includes any ethical issues. So what are the factors to be considered before accepting the audit fee? It's a direct theory question. What are the factors to be considered before determining the audit fee?
Auditors should not accept a fee which is based on the client success.
Auditors should not. No. That is not what it's actually. Yeah? They have asked us to provide the factors which the auditor need to consider while calculating the audit fee. Okay. What are the factors?
Seniority of
No. Before that, first you should mention that auditors should consider the cost of providing service in determining the audit fee, and the cost of service should be considered along with considering seniority of the person, then
urgency,
time spent by each person, then urgency of work to the client, risk and responsibilities involved, then time spent by each person, then you can consider about overhead expenses involved, then travel, accommodation and other expenses along with overhead expenses can be considered, and all these expenses together with the industry average should be considered while determining the audit fee. In addition to that, they have also asked us to consider ethical matters which are being discussed in the scenario. Is there any specific ethical issue that's discussed here?
They have asked for a low fee.
Okay, first of all, they have asked us to provide a very low audit fee. So what kind of ethical threat it is?
Lowballing.
Yeah, it's lowballing, which creates a self-interest threat to objectivity. And why does it create a self-interest threat?
Because the quality of the audit might get affected.
Because there can be chances that if the auditor quotes a very low audit fee, there can also be chances that the auditor might reduce the quality of the audit proportionally, which might reduce the possibility of providing an appropriate opinion on the company's financial statements. Then what else is affected here?
Fee is linked to the success.
Okay, they have stated that they're planning to link the fee to the success of the company expanding in overseas. So what sort of fees it is? Okay, it's a kind of contingent fees.
Contingent.
It's a kind of contingent fees. So we have already studied that as per the ACCA's code of ethics, the contingent fees are also not allowed. The fees should always be a fixed amount, or it should be based on
Hourly rates.
hourly rates. Okay, spent by each person on the engagement. So you have to specify about the safeguard. What do you need to provide as a safeguard? The auditor should communicate with client's management and those charged with governance or audit committee and should inform them that the fees will not be quite low. The fees will be calculated on the basis of the hours spent by each person, or the fees will be a fixed amount. And they should also specify that as per ACC's code of conduct, the auditor will not be able to keep a fee which is based on expanding success, which is based on success in expanding overseas. Clear? Is that clear, everyone?
Yes, sir.
Okay, fine. So this is how you will be getting questions on the audit proposal area as well as the area of audit fee. Okay. Then. Well, there can be chances that you might be getting questions from the area of KPI or the key performance indicator. So we have already done questions from the area of KPI. Well, we have done and discussed questions on school, then again on the hospital, and again on an airline company. So we'll just do one thing, out of which we will just go quickly through the Content Sky company. And there are two Content Sky companies question, one relating to international and the other one relating to the UK. So we'll be going through the international syllabus now. So in the international syllabus, that's question number 63 and part B. First of all, they have asked us about this particular key performance indicators, relevance and measurability. Then they have asked us about the examination procedures that have been followed by the auditor in relation to the performance information. So these are the performance information. So their performance area are graduation rate, academic performance, employability, and course satisfaction. And they have given us the performance areas being calculated as KPI. They have shown that percentage of students who completed the degree is 85%. Percentage of students achieving distinction is 20%. Percentage of students on graduation obtaining graduation level employment is 65%. And percentage of students who rate the university experience as excellent or very good is 70%. So these are the performance measurement areas. And we need to consider whether this performance measurement area is relevant and measurable. So before considering the relevance, first of all, you need to go through the scenario and you need to understand who all are the stakeholders of this entity. Once after identifying the stakeholders, you need to consider for those stakeholders whether these factors are important or not. So since it's a university, Rokto University, you need to consider who all are the stakeholders for a university. And for a university like Rokto, you need to consider whether the academic performance of the students is important, whether the graduation rate is important, whether the employability is important, whether course satisfaction is important. So all of these are important, then it will be relevant. Then again, you need to consider whether each one of these is measurable. If it is a quantitative measure, then you can easily measure it. But if it is a qualitative factor, then you will not be able to easily measure that. So on the basis of that only, you will be measuring whether each of this particular one is relevant and measurable. So let's do one thing. Please go through this introductory paragraph and consider whether each one of these is relevant as well as measurable. So please start with it, everyone. Done, everyone?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So, the Rockto University is a public sector entity and is a small university with approximately 2,000 students, which was established 10 years ago and specializes in vocational study program leading to award of degree in business, accounting, finance, law, and marketing. The highest performing students achieve a distinction on completing their degree program, indicating excellence in knowledge and understanding of the subject. Students pay tuition fees of 10,000 per year, and the degree program is typically 3 years long. The audit work in respect of the year ended 31st July 2015 is almost complete, but the senior has not yet completed the work in respect of performance information, which is being published with the annual financial information for the first time this year. It is requirement in the jurisdiction in which Rockto University is located that performance information is audited as part of the external audit. So they have given us an overview about the Rockto University. So as they mentioned, Rockto University is a public sector entity and it's a small university. So for a university like Rockto, who all will be their stakeholders? Students, then
Government who provide
government, then who else? The potential employers, right? The parents, then general public will be there for sure. Then
higher education
higher
regulators.
educational bodies and other colleges, right? So these are the main people that will be considered stakeholders for a university. So for these stakeholders, the graduation rate, the percentage of students who completed the degree program, is that an important measure? Is that relevant for them?
Yes.
Yes.
Definitely, because for the students, before joining any campus, definitely they will consider about the pass rate. Again, for the parents also, they will definitely be willing to send their children to a college where they will be having highest graduation rate. So definitely the graduation rate will be a relevant measure. Then academic performance, like the percentage of students who achieve a distinction, will that be a relevant measure?
Yes.
Yes, definitely that will be a relevant measure for whom, especially for the students who are planning for their higher studies. Definitely they need to get high marks in order to attain good admission in other campuses. Therefore, definitely they will consider before joining any campus whether they are having high pass rate, in addition to which they will also consider whether the students in this campus are getting highest marks. Then employability, the percentage of students who on graduation obtain graduation level employment. Will that be an important measure?
Yeah.
Definitely that will be relevant, right? Because every student might be joining in a campus and they will be spending their hard-earned money for the purpose of attaining a job. So definitely for the students as well as for other potential employers also, they will be considering to pick candidates from a particular college where they will be getting highest number of qualified professionals. So they will be an important measure. Then the course satisfaction, the percentage of students who rate the university experience as excellent or very high. Will that be a relevant measure? Is that a relevant measure? The last one, course satisfaction.
Yes, to select the university.
Yes, definitely. Because for a university, definitely they will be considering about the quality of the lectures. So the students will be considering whether the other students have rated the course satisfaction as high or low. Definitely the students will consider choosing a college where the faculties are being rated as high. So the course satisfaction will also be a relevant measure. Then we need to consider whether each one of these are measurable. We need to consider whether the graduation rate is measurable. Is that a measurable one, graduation rate?
Yes.
Definitely it is. Then academic performance?
Yes.
Yes. Then employability?
No.
No, it will not be very easy to measure the employability because they have stated about those students who have obtained graduation level employment. So even if a student is employed, we will not be able to consider whether it's a graduation level employment or not. And finally, when it comes to the course satisfaction also, the percentage of students who rated the university experience as excellent or very high. So will that be an easy measure?
No,
No.
judgmental.
Because that one is a judgmental area, so that won't be an easy measure. So this is what you need to explain with regarding the relevance and measurability of performance information. Again, you have to consider one thing very importantly. In this question, they have asked you about this particular part for approximately 5 marks because you will be getting equally split mark here. So this for relevance and measurability, you'll be getting in total of 5 marks. And for relevance alone, you'll be getting only 2.5 marks. And for measurability as well, you'll be only getting 2.5 marks. So you don't want to over elaborate there, because even if you over elaborate, you won't be getting much marks. So only write according to the marks. Then second, they have asked you about the examination procedure that you need to do in relation to the performance information. So when you get a question to perform on the examination procedures, always keep one thing in mind. So when an examination procedure is asked, you have to literally consider about the common procedures that we learned in the last day session. So what we need to consider here as part of the examination procedure. You consider whether there is any possibility of having a recalculation or reperformance of computation here. You need to consider whether anything over here can be cross-checked with documentary evidence. Is there any possibility of obtaining external confirmation, reviewing correspondence, discussing with the management? So you have to consider in that perspective. Again, you can consider whether there is any possibility of having a comparison, any possibility of agreeing this to any supporting documents. If there is something, you can write it as the procedure. But again, while writing procedure, there should be a clear procedure stated, like inquiry, inspection, observation, or obtaining something. Document or information have to be specified there. And what are the purpose for which you obtain this document and information? That should also be clearly provided. So only if you have 3 elements in your answer, then only you will be getting marks there. So always write it accordingly. Say, for example, first one, percentage of students who completed the degree program. How can you correct that? Or how can you consider whether it is appropriately calculated and mentioned in the performance information? You can recalculate it, right? So you can recalculate the graduation rate by taking the percentage of students, considering the number of students who have cleared the program by the number of students who have attended the program, in order to consider whether the amount of graduation rate is mathematically accurate. Then how can you understand whether the percentage of students who obtain graduation level employment is actually 65% itself?
External confirmation.
Yes, you can obtain external confirmation from a sample of employees who have achieved graduation level employment, in order to consider whether they have actually got the graduation level job itself. Again, is there any other option? Definitely, you can consider reviewing correspondence between the potential students, between the students who have received graduation level employment and with the Oxford University, in order to consider whether the students have informed the university about their employment. So this is how you can perform the examination procedures. So whenever you write the examination procedure, ensure that you are including a procedure. You have specifying the document or information required, as well as the purpose is also clearly mentioned. Is that clear, everyone? Paka? Clear on ellarkum?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Then moving on, we have got another requirement here in the same question, Content Sky company. So they have asked us to identify and explain the matters which may cast significant doubt on company's ability to continue as going concern. So we might be getting a question to consider whether a particular company is in going concern or not. So to consider whether a company is in going concern or not, you have to go through the scenario very well. So for the timing, just do one thing. They are mentioning about a Content Sky company. So the company is currently facing some sort of cash flow difficulties, and they have got only 1,50,000 as cash in hand. And they have also given their reports. And in addition to which, they have given their notes to the financial statements. So please do one thing. Please go through the first 2 notes and try to pick whatever things are being mentioned with regarding the company's going concern difficulty. So answering pattern is very simple. When you get a question to identify and explain on the matters which may cast significant doubt on the company's ability to continue as going concern, just identify whatever being the issues that they face and explain it in your own words. And you can also include your assumption on how this might affect the company's ability to continue as going concern. So please go through this. First 2 points around, okay?
will not exist in 10 years time.
Done? Okay. The bank loan was extended in March 2015 by drawing on the borrowing facilities offered by the bank. The loan carries a fixed interest rate and is secured on the company's property, including the head office and manufacturing side. The first repayment of the loan capital is due on 30th June 2016, when $350,000 is due to be paid. So what will be the issue here? So will there be any going concern difficulty in this case?
Yes, their cash is 150, so it would
Okay.
be not possible for them to repay 350,000.
Okay, then what will happen if they will not repay that whole amount?
Going concern issues would be there.
Okay, exactly. That is what we need to state there. So it was clearly evident from the scenario that they have got a cash balance of 1,50,000 only for the year end. And in the upcoming year, they need to pay an amount of 3,50,000 as the first set of repayment of the loan capital taken. And they have provided a security on the company's head office and manufacturing side for taking this bank loan. So as we know that in case if this bank loan amount is not being repaid by the client company, therefore there can be chances that the bank might seize the property, right? With regarding the head office and manufacturing side might be seized by the bank. In that case, the company will not be able to continue with their office because the administrative office will be seized and thereby they will not be able to carry out their administration related activities. In addition to which, the manufacturing side of the company are also being seized by the bank if the loan amount is not repaid. So automatically there can be chances that it might affect the company's going concern ability. Then again, the Continental Sky companies renegotiated terms of trade with the main supplier of cocoa beans and extended payment terms from 50 days to 80 days in order to improve the working capital. So what can go wrong there with regarding the working capital?
The suppliers would be reluctant to give them credit. They would be dissatisfied.
Exactly. That will be the problem here. So they have stated that they have renegotiated the terms with their major supplier. So from 50 days of credit period, they have extended further to additional 30 days to 1 month again. So there can be chances that gradually the supplier of cocoa beans might get dissatisfied with the payment terms of the company. And since it's one of the main supplier, if the supplier is reluctant to supply any further goods to the client company, there can be chances that they won't be able to continue properly with their manufacturing process. So again, this might also affect the company's going concern in future if the supplier is dissatisfied. So this is how we need to provide answers in relation to the company's going concern issues. So we just want to identify whatever being mentioned as a going concern issue, and then we need to explain on the factors that is actually being mentioned within the scenario. Is that clear, everyone?
Yes.
Okay, fine. So this is how you will be getting questions on the matters that we need to consider with regarding the company's ability to continue as going concern. Okay. Then again, we have already studied an area called quality control, right? So whenever we get a question on the quality control, we need to consider the benchmarks before providing the answers. So you will be getting a question whereby the examiner will specify that an auditor have already done an audit engagement, and they will be asking us to assess the quality of that particular audit engagement. So in order to assess the quality of an engagement, which is already being performed by an auditor, we need to consider multiple factors. The first thing that we need to consider is the fact that we need to consider whether they have followed with the ISAs. So we need to properly consider whether the audit is being performed in accordance with international standards on auditing. Say, for example, well, in ISA 320, we have already studied that the auditor should fix a materiality at the planning stage. Subsequently, the auditor should review the materiality, and whenever it's required, auditor should revise that. And it may be mentioned in the scenario that the auditor have used the same level of materiality throughout the audit. And if the auditor is using the same level of materiality throughout the audit engagement, there can be chances that it might not be an appropriate level of materiality being maintained. And the audit opinion expressed by the auditor will also be inappropriate. So you need to consider whether ISAs are being followed to assess whether the quality of the engagement is appropriate. Then again, you need to consider whether the audit engagement is being done by appropriate level of staff members. Sometimes it may be mentioned in the scenario that some of the key judgmental areas might be performed by the audit juniors. Well, we know that they might not be having sufficient experience to evaluate the judgmental areas. So the possibility of identifying mistakes will be very low. So we can mention that. Again, we need to consider whether the audit is time pressured. Because of if the audit is being performed in a time pressured manner, auditor will be in a pressure whereby auditor will not be able to obtain sufficient appropriate audit evidence. So it will automatically affect the quality of the audit engagement. So that have to be considered. Then the type of evidence obtained need to be clearly considered. Well, we know that there can be chances that an auditor might be obtaining external or internal evidence, oral or written evidence. Then auditor might be obtaining evidences directly or by the client. Then there can be chances that reliability will also be depending on the company's internal control system's efficiency. So which is better? Is the oral evidence or the written evidence? Which one is more better?
Written.
Then evidence obtained by the auditor or being provided by the client?
Obtained by the auditor.
Then is it better to get an internal evidence from the client itself or to get a better external evidence?
External.
External evidence. Then again, if the efficiency of the internal control system increases, what will happen with the reliability of the evidence?
Increases.
It will also increase. Then is it better to have an original document or a photocopy? Original documents will be always better choice, right? So this is how we need to consider whether each of the evidence is appropriate. So we need to consider the type of evidence and we need to evaluate whether the auditor have obtained appropriate type of evidence. Then again, we need to consider whether the audit is being performed as per audit plan. It may be mentioned in the scenario that there are some internal control deficiencies and the auditor is willing to continue with the control approach itself. So is it allowed to continue with the control approach if there are deficiencies in the internal control system?
No.
Auditors should focus more on substantive procedures rather than on relying on the controls. So if the auditor is following the audit planning in that case without amending the audit plan, it is inappropriate. Again, you need to consider whether the audit is being properly supervised and reviewed. Well, we know that it's always necessary to have a senior level review. Whenever a work is being carried out by a junior, work have to be reviewed by senior level staff instead of being reviewed by the same level of staff itself. So you need to consider whether the work is being reviewed by appropriate level of staff itself. So these are the factors that you need to mainly consider in order to evaluate a question relating to quality control. So what we need to consider in relation to the quality control, first of all, we need to check whether it's ISA is being followed appropriately. Then we need to consider whether work is being allocated to appropriate level of staff. Then we need to consider the possibilities of having time pressure. Then we need to consider the types of evidences obtained. Then we need to consider whether audit is performed in accordance with the audit plan. And finally, again, we need to consider whether the audit are being properly supervised and reviewed. Is that clear, everyone?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So this is how you'll be getting questions from the area of quality control. So using the information in Exhibit 1, evaluate the quality control, ethical and professional matters arising in respect of planning and performing audit of retriever group. So they have asked us to evaluate the quality control and ethical issues that we face in relation to the audit engagement of retriever group company. So it's a question called retriever, question number 49. So please go through this first paragraph or first two paragraphs and consider whether there is any quality control issues faced by the entity. And you need to consider whether there is any ethical issues as well. Okay, so please go through these two paragraphs. Done? Okay. So the audit has been quite time pressured. The audit manager told the juniors not to perform some of the planned audit procedures on items such as directors' emoluments and share capital as they are considered to be low risk. He has also instructed us not to use firm statistical sampling method in selecting trade receivables balance for testing, as it would be quicker to pick the sample based on our own judgment. Two of the juniors were given task of auditing trade payables and going concern, and the audit manager asked us to review each other's work, as it would be good training for us. And he did not have time to review everything. So what are the issues here?
Time pressure.
Yeah, they have given it directly that they are facing time pressure. So as we mentioned earlier, what will happen if the audit is being performed under a time pressure situation?
Quality will be affected.
The quality of the engagement will be sacrificed or will be affected because the auditor will not be able to obtain sufficient appropriate audit evidence within the limited time period. Okay, so you can elaborate it further. Then what else is the issue here?
Some of the planned audit procedures were not performed.
Okay, some of the planned audit procedures were not performed. So what have not been performed properly here?
Directors' emoluments and share capital.
Okay, they are not evaluating the directors' emoluments and share capital area because they are considering it to be low risk areas. So is it actually a low risk area?
No.
No, because we know that directors' emoluments are one of the highest significant area because it represents related party transactions. So it have to be treated as one of the high risk area. Since they are treating it as a low risk area, it is inappropriate. Again, they are considering share capital to be low risk area, but when it comes to a listed entity, share capital should also be treated as a high risk area. Then what else?
Juniors were appointed for doing that. That is also.
Okay, that too, they are asking juniors to perform work in relation to the directors' emoluments and other area. The work is not being allocated to appropriate level of staff. Okay, then what else?
Statistical sampling methods are not used.
Okay, they are mentioning that they are not being using statistical sampling methods because the engagement auditor have mentioned them that it is better to use samples based on their own judgment itself because it will be very easier to pick the samples. Will that be okay here? No, well, we know that the judgment sampling are not up to mark as compared with that to statistical sampling methods, because in the statistical sampling method, the possibilities of selecting inappropriate samples will be very low as compared with that of the judgmental sampling, because judgment bias will be very high when it comes to judgmental based sampling. Then what else?
Juniors were given task of auditing going concern.
Yeah, juniors are being given task of auditing going concern. So will that be okay if the juniors perform the works in relation to the going concern?
No.
No, because we know that going concern is one of the most highest judgmental area in a company's financial statements preparation. And that judgmental area is being provided to a junior auditor to review. Therefore, there can be chances that the juniors might not be having sufficient knowledge to review the works in relation to the going concern and to consider whether the judgments in relation to going concern are appropriate. So the possibility of giving an inappropriate opinion will be quite high. Then again, are the works being properly reviewed?
No.
No, they are asking the juniors to review each other's work. So automatically there can be chances that in case if the review is not being done appropriately, if there is any mistake in the work performed will not be traced appropriately, it would also affect providing an appropriate opinion for the company's audit. Clear, everyone?
Yes.
Okay. So this is how we need to evaluate the questions for quality control. You need to explain it further in your own words, but this is how you need to identify and explain on the matters you need to consider in relation to quality control. Okay. Clear, everyone? Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Then again, you will be getting questions on PFI engagements. The examiner might be asking you to write the audit procedures in relation to the PFI engagement. So what should be the factor that have to be actually considered while performing an engagement relating to PFI? What have to be considered while performing an engagement relating to the PFI? So purpose. What will be the purpose of PFI engagement? It will be to evaluate a matter that is going to happen in the future, right? So one of the main key issue that the engagement auditor will be facing in relation to the PFI engagement will be the fact that they will not be able to get much evidences in relation to the PFI, as these are not historic information. Well, we know that PFIs are the budgets and forecasts, or the forecast of projections that might take place in future, about which the management is also not sure. So in case of PFI engagement, we'll be having some sort of general points. However, in addition to that, you must be focusing much more on inquiries with the management and performing analytical procedures by comparing with the prior year balances and with that of the industry data. So always keep that in mind. When it comes to the prospective financial information or the PFI engagement, you will not be able to get much supporting documents. So instead, you need to rely much more on the analytical procedures or on inquiries with the management, as you will be expressing only a limited assurance on the PFI engagements. So these are the general points to be considered. So first of all, you can always consider performing recalculation of the forecast. So if it is with regarding forecasted P&L, then you need to specify that recalculate the forecast profit and loss account to confirm the arithmetical accuracy. Then you can always consider reviewing the accounting policies to check whether the accounting policies that are apt for preparing the company's financial statements are being used here as well. Then again, we need to consider whether there is any forecast which are being prepared by the entity in the prior year, and you need to consider the prior year actual with that of the prior year forecast to consider whether there is any significant variances. Then you can always consider performing analytical procedures, and you can also check whether the forecast is reasonable on the basis of auditor's knowledge of the client's business. So these are the factors that you need to mainly consider with regarding PFI engagement's general procedure. In addition to the general procedure, you can also consider providing specific procedure in relation to the scenario. Suppose consider that you are getting a PFI engagements question, like a question which is there in the revision kit called waters. So you'll be getting a scenario like this. So you will be getting the prior year actual financials and upcoming year's forecast financial statements. So you will be required to provide examination procedures for the P&L. PFI's examination procedures for P&L. In that case, you have got the information like this with regarding the forecast statement of P&L. So you need to use this point in accordance with the scenario. So you can consider reviewing the client company's financial statements, and after that you can include these points. You can perform analytical procedure, and following the analytical procedure, you need to perform discussion with the management to consider trend in revenue, and you need to consider whether it is increased or decreased as compared with the prior year. You need to calculate the trend, and you need to include it within the procedures. Say, for example, if it is increased by 20% in the current year, you can include that as over here. So you can mention that analytical procedures followed by discussion with the management on trend in revenue, which is forecasted to increase by 20% as compared with the prior year. Discuss the reason for anticipated increase in the cost of sales with the management to understand whether the increase of 35% is due to any significant factors. You can obtain the breakdown of items included in the forecasted operating expenses, or in case of finance cost is given, then you can obtain breakdown of items included in the finance cost and perform analytical review to compare to those included in the previous year, check for any omissions. Then you can obtain cost breakdown, consider whether if any expenses, say for example, if the company have planning to acquire any new intangible asset, then in that case, you can consider including the point that using cost breakdown, consider whether amortization charges have been increased in line with planned capital expenditure. So instead of capital expenditure, make it if the acquisition in line with the acquisition of intangible assets. So this is how you need to provide the points on PFI. So literally you can use this general points, and on the basis of this general point, you can incorporate it into the scenario. So when we have discussed about each of these points in detail during our regular session, so please do go through that lecture notes, or if you want to watch the same videos again, please do go through that videos and consider finding out the general points as well as the specific points that can be asked for each scenario. Is that clear, everyone?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So ensure one thing, whenever you write points in relation to the PFI engagements, always you should think that you will be getting information about the PFI engagement, mainly by performing analytical procedures and inquiry. You can also consider performing recalculations, but you won't be able to match much to the supporting documents. Okay. Clear? Clear or
Yes,
not?
sir.
Yeah. Then we have also studied about the due diligence engagement, out of which we will discuss about one of the most important question on due diligence engagement. We have discussed about a question called Jacob Company. So in this question, they have asked us to recommend additional information which should be made available for firm's due diligence review. And they have asked us to explain the need for such information. So guys, what do you mean by due diligence engagement? What do you mean by due diligence engagement? It's an engagement whereby the auditor will be considering whether a potential investment that is planning to be made by one company in the other company will be worth it or not. So that is something called due diligence engagement. So while performing a due diligence engagement, we must always consider from the perspective of a buyer. Somebody is willing to sell a company to us and we are planning to acquire that. And they are giving us the information regarding that particular client company. Sorry, acquiring company. So when we hear about a particular seller, definitely from the perspective of a buyer, we might be having certain additional information requirement. So we can specify about whatever additional information is being actually required, but you need to clearly specify about the reasons why you need that particular additional information. That is what you need to provide as a requirement in the due diligence engagements question. So we'll just do one thing. As it's mentioned in the scenario, Jacob Company is a private company which is involved in the business of providing repair and maintenance services for domestic customers. And now they are also planning to start a business whereby they need to offer works of swimming pool and hot tub, but they are not much experienced in that. So therefore, they are planning to acquire another company called Loki Company. And with regarding Loki Company, they have given us these details. And we need to consider what are the additional factors we need to know about the Loki Company. So please go through this scenario very quickly so that we can consider about the additional information that is required with regarding Loki Company. So Loki Company is an owner managed with 3 of the 5 board members being original founders of the company, which was incorporated 30 years ago. Head office is located in a prestigious building which is owned by the founder's family estate. Company recently acquired a separate piece of land on which new head office is built. Company has grown rapidly in the last 3 years as more affluent customers afford cost of installing and maintaining swimming pool and hot tub. Expansion was funded by a significant bank loan. Company relies on the overdraft facility in the winter months when less operating cash inflows arise from maintenance work. This is what it's mentioned in the scenario. So with regarding scenario, we need to consider what all are the additional information that we require, and we need to mention about the reasons why we need that additional information. Okay. So what are the additional information that we require in this scenario? Think from the perspective of a buyer, and the seller of the Loki Company is telling you these details. So you need to ask the corresponding questions to them. So first of all, they have told us that it's an owner managed business and majority of the board members are their family members. So what we need to consider here? So, well, we need to consider whether this particular company's board of directors will leave the company once after we acquire that company. Therefore, we need to know about the organizational structure as well as about the contract period of each of the directors. Because what will happen? Why do we need to know this? We need to mention the purpose as well, right? So why do we need to know about this? Because once after acquiring the company, if the existing board of directors leave the company and if they find it as an exit route, what will happen? We won't be able to continue with the company's business as we are not familiar with the activities. Therefore, we need to consider whether they will be able to continue with the Loki Company itself even after our acquisition. Then only we will be able to acquire this company. Then thereafter, they have mentioned that their current head office is being held in a prestigious building which is owned by their family estate. So we need to consider whether we will be able to continue in the same building because they have just acquired another property for building the construction of the, so making the new office building. So if we are not able to continue with the existing building, then there can be chances that we might incur additional expenses after acquisition. So which might affect the feasibility of acquiring this company. So we need to consider whether we will be able to continue with the other office itself. Then they have told us that they have purchased a separate piece of land to construct a new office site. What we need to have with regarding that? Definitely we need to know about the details of this acquisition, because we need to understand the place where this particular property is held. Then we need to understand about the size of the property, the price for which they have acquired them. And above all, we need to know whether we will be getting this property as part of the acquisition of Loki company. Because if we are not getting this piece of land, then additionally, we need to purchase new land for the purpose of constructing the new office building. So which might incur additional capital expenditure. Therefore, we need to know whether we will be getting access to this particular piece of land. So this is how you need to think from the perspective of a buyer. Is it clear, everyone?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Then again, in the second paragraph, they have mentioned that they have taken a significant bank loan. Well, we need to get details about the bank loan. Why? Because after the acquisition, we might be responsible for paying back the whole amount of the loan. So if the loan amount is significantly high and high amount of interest are being incurred as part of the loan, then this acquisition will not be feasible. Then we need to consider that. Again, they have mentioned that in the winter months, they won't be having much cash flows. So they will be using help of overdraft facility. So we need to consider the terms of this overdraft facility, because after acquisition, we might also need to have this overdraft facility to carry out our day-to-day operations. So we should acquire this particular company only if we will be getting access to that overdraft facility as well. So this will be the specific matters that have to be considered as part of additional information required for the due diligence engagement. And I have also taught you that some of the general factors can also be asked in every scenario. So what will be the general factors that you require as additional information? You can ask for organizational structure, then the company's previous year audited financial statements, prior year management accounts, then most recent management accounts, as well as you can also consider asking them about their forecasted financial statements. Yeah, clear, everyone? So this is what you need to consider in obtaining additional information in relation to due diligence engagement. And you also need to provide explanation for each of these additional informations required. Any doubts in relating to the one we discussed? All clear, everyone?
Yes.
Okay, fine. Finally, we'll do one more question. So please read this scenario. Using the information in Exhibit 2, discuss the implication of the circumstance described in the audit seniors note, nature and any reporting which is required to take place in relation to the Heron company. So they have asked us to explain on the circumstances mentioned in the audit seniors note, and they have also asked us about the type of reporting required in that case. So please go through this Exhibit 2. Why is Lanham done? Okay. So Heron Company is an owner-managed business which operates a chain of bar and restaurants. This is your first year auditing the client, and the audit for the year ended 30th April 2015 is underway. The audit senior has sent you a note for your attention. When I was auditing revenue, I noticed something strange. Heron Company's revenue, which is almost entirely cash-based, is recognized as 5.5 million in the draft financial statements. However, accounting system shows that till receipt for the cash paid by the customer amount to only 3.5 million. This seems odd, so I questioned Avagal, the finance controller, about this. She said that Jack Heron Company's owner deals with the cash receipt and posts through journals dealing with cash and revenue. Ava asked Jack the reason for this journal, but he refused to give an explanation. While auditing cash, I noticed a payment of 2 million made by the electronic transfer from the company's bank account to an overseas financial institution. The bank statement showed that transfer was authorized by Jack Heron, but no other documentation regarding the transfer was available. Alarmed by the size of this transaction, lack of evidence to support it, I questioned Jack Heron, asking him about the source of cash receipt and the reason for electronic transfer. He would not give any answers and become quite aggressive. So what is the actual issue here?
Money laundering.
Yes, money laundering. And how can you trace the money laundering transaction?
Owner manager business.
Yeah. So if it's an owner managed business, possibility of having money laundering will be high. Then cash-based business, then there can be chances that owner might have introduced some of the fund which is unaccounted. Then there can be chances of having transfer of money from our company to any other company or to any other country. Then if finally the money is appearing within the company's books appropriately, it can be considered to be a money laundering transaction. So, well, what do you mean by money laundering transaction? What do you mean by money laundering transaction?
Concealing the origin and the ownership of an
Okay, we will be concealing the origin and the ownership of the fund, which means we will be converting the illegitimate fund into legitimate fund, right? We will consider converting the fund which appears to be from an illegitimate source to a fund which appears to be in the legitimate source. So this process of conversion will be known as money laundering. And which all were the stages of money laundering?
Placement, layering, and integration.
So what do you mean by placement?
Initial deposit.
Yeah, it's the initial deposit of the illegitimate fund into a legitimate business activity. Then what about layering?
Transferring the
we will be transferring the money from business to business or place to place to conceal the original source. That will be layering. And what will be integration?
Appearance of the fund as a legitimate source in the business.
Okay. Finally, the money will appear to be the money which is earned from legitimate source. That will be known as the integration stage. So these are the 3 stages of money laundering. So when you explain your answer in relation to the money laundering, first of all, you need to state what is actually mean by money laundering. Then you need to mention about the scenario which specifies that the client have done money laundering. Then you have to mention about each stages of money laundering. And then you need to explain where the client have done money laundering activity here. So here, as we can see, out of 3.5 million actual fund, the company have introduced additional 2 million to the company's account. And they have reflected a balance of 5.5 million as total revenue. So which shows that the company have introduced illegitimate fund into its legitimate business, which shows the placement stage of money laundering. Then they have shown us that they have transferred their money to an overseas financial institution, which might represent layering stage. Finally, the money appears to be part of the company's actual revenue, which shows the integration stage. So each stage of this money laundering activity should be explained along with the definition for each of the stages. Then thereafter, is there any offense that is being performed by the auditor here?
Yes, tipping off.
Yes, the auditor have done tipping off. Then what do you mean by tipping off?
Any action that causes the suspicious person, the person who does money laundering to be under investigation.
Exactly. So the term tipping off means that the suspect will know about the fact that he is under a money laundering investigation. So here the auditor have asked the particular suspicious person directly whether he have done money laundering activity. So since the auditor have questioned that Jack Heron, there can be chances that Jack Heron might be able to realize the fact that he is under money laundering investigation. So it will be considered as an offense that have been went wrong from the part of the auditor, and it will be treated as a tipping of offense. Clear, everyone? Okay, so you have to state about the tipping of as well. And finally, the requirement also asks us to provide the reporting for money laundering. How do we need to report on money laundering? Money laundering have to be reported to the money laundering reporting officer. Then money laundering reporting officer will need to consider whether the claim raised by the person who have identified the money laundering is appropriate. And if he actually feels that it's appropriate, then he should obtain the evidences in relation to money laundering and submit it to National Crime Agency or Financial Intelligence Unit. And he should also submit a standard report. And what are the things that will be included within the standard report?
Name of the suspicious
Name
person.
of the suspicious person, then
The
even if it gives rise to suspicious, then any other additional information that is required to be provided, these all have to be included within the standard format. Clear?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so this is how we will be getting questions from the area of money laundering. So it's question number 50, Lark and Co. So please go through that question as well. Okay. So these are the main areas of the syllabus. I mean, the syllabus of AAA. In addition to which, there can be also question which appears to be from the area of forensic audit, which we have already done. So you can take random questions on forensic engagement that will be mainly be based on this same kind of procedures to be performed on forensic audit. You can use the same procedure. And again, there may be factors that need to consider before accepting a forensic audit engagement. So please do go through that questions as well. Okay. So when it comes to the main syllabus area, we have got questions from the area of audit risk, business risk, and risk of material misstatement. In addition to which, we will be getting questions from the area of reporting part, which can be either matters to be considered further action, then matters to be considered discussion with the management, audit evidence, further procedures, matters to be considered before accepting an engagement and before agreeing the terms of engagement. So, well, what was the difference between before accepting engagement and agreeing terms? When it comes to accepting an engagement, what are the factors we need to consider about the fees, resources, then money laundering, ethical issues, professional competence and factors. And before accepting the terms of the engagement, what we need to consider there?
Engagement letter.
Format of the engagement letter. Then we have studied about critical appraisal, about advertisement today, then tendering, audit fee, quality control, due diligence, PFI, KPI, going concern, money laundering and ethics. So is that clear, everyone? Okay, so these are the key areas of the AAA syllabus through which we have gone through. So please do revise all these areas and please prepare properly for the next 2 days. So we'll be having mock exam on Monday. And in the mock exam, we will be again having a discussion on all these areas. Especially we will be getting questions on the basis of the most latest syllabus. So definitely you have to go through all the questions. And ensure one thing, that you revise all areas before appearing the exam. And in addition to which, when you appear for the mock exams, ensure that you will be able to focus continuously for the 3 hours, because you have to write in exam scenarios itself, because only if you write in an exam-based scenario, then only we will be able to cope up the same time management skills during your actual exam as well. So please do ensure that you are having sufficient time to write the exam. So even if it is in the late night, then also it's fine. The questions will be open from Sunday night onwards. So you can appear for the exam anytime before Monday evening. And for the regular students, I mean regular Eximus students, I will be calling you, each one of you, one by one. And we will be discussing on the answer as well. I will let you know about the corrections that you need to make in relation to each of the answers. Okay. So, and for the regular batch, any further communication relating to our upcoming classes and discussion and doubt clearing sessions will be informed in the group itself. So please do consider revising all the areas in this weekend so that you can appear for the exam on the coming Monday itself. And when we know there is only 1 more week actually left for the exam. So please do revise all the areas and ensure that you are practicing questions from each areas. And when it comes to the practice, you should type it down in your system itself. In case if you can, in case if you want to use, you can also use the practice platform. to get a better picture with regarding the UI, especially if you're appearing your AAA paper as first paper in the P level, especially for those students who have already claimed exemption for the first 9 papers. Okay, so do practice as much as you can and do go through all the questions in the revision kit if possible, and especially focus on these important questions also. Okay, clear everyone?
Yes, sir.
All right. So all the best, everyone. Please do practice and appear properly for the upcoming mock exam. Okay. All right. So that's it. That's all for the day. Thank you.